Hi, I'm Fiona, and it's really lovely to be here with you today. Today, I'm going to talk about my journey in Qigong, and I'll talk for about an hour, and then we will have questions for about an hour. And so Trina will put in the chat box a link that you can go on to, and you can go and click that link and go into your portal and ask any questions you like. So feel free to do that when you want. So I thought first we'd create a chi field, and I wanted to tell you a little story. So a few days ago, I asked the universe for guidance in doing this talk to you today. And I asked just before I went to bed, and then I went to bed and I had this beautiful dream. And in the dream, my mother came and she gave me a plate of cookies that she had just cooked. She said, "These cookies are for you and your sister to enjoy." And then she came up to me and she gave me this wonderful hug. And she said, "I love you very much." My mum is dead. So for me to have such a lovely dream, my heart felt so open. And I felt like it was absolutely the perfect thing, because it's all about us being together in love and sharing this plate of cookies we have. So if you would like to now draw yourself back into your body and close your eyes gently and take a few breaths. Feel your breath going in and out of your body. Feel the beauty of that breath. Feel how you're interacting with the universe every time you breathe. It's like you and the universe are in a big hug together. Feel the opening and closing as you breathe. The gathering and dispersing. Feel the creation of the universe moment by moment inside of you. Feel how wonderful this is. Feel your heart and let your heart open like a wide open door with the beautiful, wonderful light shining out. Feel the trust in your heart. Feel yourself surrender completely to trust. Feel the openness in your heart. Feel how open you are to your own self, your own body, your own consciousness, your heart and your shin, and the whole universe. Feel the love shining forth from your heart, and let yourself bask in this beautiful light. Feel yourself opening to gratitude. The gratitude to be here today, alive. This miracle of being with one another in this space. Being in this beautiful chi field. Feel the gong jing in your heart. Such an amazing thing, a miracle. True respect. Feel yourself in this beautiful place. Feel the Kaishin verse. Heaven, earth, and human are all teachers with infinite wisdom. I open the door of my heart to trust and love them unconditionally. With gratitude in my heart, I receive the bright light of their love and wisdom and unify with it. My Shen, E, and heart are fully aligned with the light of Tao. With Gongjing, realization and wisdom are arising. I am one with the light of the wisdom of the universe. Feel yourself. Feel your heart open your arms out to the beautiful universe. Slowly gather the universe to your heart. Stay in this lovely place. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. So it's lovely to be here. My journey with Qigong started out of desperation. I had found myself in this place where I was very, very ill, and I had been diagnosed with fibromyalgia and adrenal fatigue. And it got so bad that I had to leave my job, and I had very restricted mobility. I could walk, but only for 5 minutes. I could walk down to the dairy, and then my husband, I'd have to ring my husband and ask him to come and pick me up in the car. So I was in a lot of pain and very, very exhausted, and it was getting worse and worse. So I went to doctors and I went to a specialist, and the specialist told me that they thought I only had 2 years to live. And during that time, I would lose the ability to walk at all. And eventually it just would get so bad that I would die. So they said that all they could do for me was give me painkillers, and they would increase those as it got worse. So I didn't know what to do. I tried all of these different modalities of healing, and none of them worked. And then I just luckily, by chance, I met a Renshura teacher, and I'm so grateful to her, because otherwise I don't think I would be here talking to you. I met this teacher, and she was teaching a weekend workshop on T1 and D1. So I went along to that. And even though I was very, very ill, I could feel the chi in my body. And I could even feel the chi a little bit in my fingers. And what was more astounding was when that teacher demonstrated the practice, I could feel the strength of the chi field that she was creating. And I felt my heart opening to her. And so I could see there was something in this. And so I said to her at the end of the workshop, how do I learn more? And she said, well, there isn't really a teacher in your area, so you would have to do the teacher's training course. And the teacher's training had already been going for a couple of years. And so I needed to start with level 3. And I contacted Melissa, and she said, well, level 3 is in 2 weeks. So but you can't do level 3 without doing at least level 1. So I very quickly went and did level 1 by correspondence remotely. And then I went to the training and I found it incredible. All the things that Jan Sir was saying really resonated with me. And when he described totality, I just felt this very strong connection to it. It resonated to things that I had experienced earlier in my life. And I could also feel the chi when the whole group was practicing. So I thought, yes, this could help me. And so then when I went home, I started practicing T1 and D1 because that's the only method I had learned at this point. And I kept practicing, but I didn't practice every day because I was very, very ill. And, you know, now I wish I had practiced every day because I can see that really that was just my patterns at work. But I did start getting better and better. And that was incredible. And then I read Wellbeing Begins With You and Voyage to the Shore Part 1. And something in those books that was just incredible information. And I read the part where Jan Sir says, if you don't want a thought, just don't have it. And at that moment, I could see that my life was full of so many thoughts. My mind really didn't have any original thoughts. It may have 0.02% original thoughts. The rest was just me going round and round in my head, basically worrying about things, rehashing things. And so at that moment, I could see one in particular, which was every day, a lot of the day, I would think about my father and I would think, does my dad love me? Maybe he doesn't love me. Is he criticizing me? Is he trying to hurt me? Things like this. And why doesn't he call me? Should I call him? And this would just go round and round. And so when I read that statement, just don't have the thought, something happened. It was like a lightning bolt. And I never had that thought again. I was like, okay, I don't need this thought. It's got no real basis. I've got no evidence of anything really going on here. I'm just not having this thought anymore. And so I never had it anymore. And it was remarkable just to be able to stop a thought like that. So then I continued on. I thought, okay, maybe I can help these other thoughts. And I could see the thoughts everywhere. But I struggled. I couldn't do it. And so then I started level 4, which is the level where you learn the meditation of Tongwan to open your heart. And I started practicing Tongwan every day. And I kind of renamed it Sleep One because I couldn't do it without falling asleep immediately. So for about at least 6 months, I never heard anything when I did it. I have no idea what was happening. I heard no words. And then after that, I did have more and more moments where I would hear little snippets of what Melissa was saying. And each time I did it, I heard different things. So it felt like the recording was being changed. And I was so convinced, how come this meditation changes all the time? But so I still went on. I felt like I could feel inside something changing. I could kind of feel things kind of moving around inside. So I kept going. And then I was very lucky that another teacher, who I am also so deeply grateful for, she gave me the Ling1 questions. And they're the questions to help create a new pattern, to replace a negative pattern that you have. And they're part of a meditation. But I didn't really know the whole of Ling1. I was still doing level 4. I hadn't started level 5. So when I saw this, I could see that this was amazing and that it would potentially really help me, because what I had noticed was that when I had thoughts that were negative, I would get more pain in my body. So my condition would get worse. And when I had a good day, by chance, I could feel my pain dissipating. And so I knew by this point that it was my illness was definitely highly contributed to by my patterns. So I decided to start a program. And that program was that I was going to get these notebooks, which I did. I got a little notebook and I got a big notebook. And the purpose of the notebooks was to write down all my patterns. So the little notebook was going to go outside with me when I walked around, and the big notebook was for at home. And so my aim was to write down every single pattern I had, every single moment, 24/7. So I started this program, and on the first day, it was a dismal failure because I had so many patterns. All I did all day was write, and I had hundreds, thousands of patterns, and I couldn't keep up with them. And by the end of the day, my notebooks were a complete mess. I was like, I don't know what to do. So I thought, okay, what can you do? So I decided to start a tally system. So I started tallying up the patterns instead, rather than writing them all down. So I would just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and continue on, hundreds a day. And then at the end of the day, or sometimes twice a day, I would write down the biggies, the big patterns of the day. And I'd write a list, and then I would do Ling1, or the Ling1 questions on those patterns. So I was very busy. I was very, very busy. And but what I noticed was that the patterns started getting less the more I did it. And also what I noticed was that I would have more patterns when I didn't do Qigong, moving Qigong practice. So when I practiced, I was better. And if I had one day off, the numbers in the book would go up. And if I had 3 days off, it was like, it was horrendous. So many patterns. So I made that commitment then to do Qigong every single day. So, I didn't really enjoy doing moving practice. I would rather do other things. So I resisted it. I would wait to the end of the day and fit it in. But now I became a lot more committed. I became extremely committed. And I decided, who doesn't like doing this moving practice? Is actually my patterns. So I'm not going to listen to it. If I don't feel like it, it doesn't matter. I will just do it. I don't mind if I hate it. I just will do it. So this helps so much, just to keep momentum going on working on the patterns. So one day I was practicing Qigong, and this incredible thing happened. I could feel a pattern start to arise in my consciousness while I was flying, doing the movements. And I noticed something was watching it. And I didn't know what that was. And the thing that watched it, just by the act of watching it, made the pattern disappear. So it never actually began doing its kind of talking in my mind. It just disappeared. And I was so astounded. I didn't know what happened. And I actually stopped my practice for a second going, oh, what's going on? And later I understood that was Dre Cha happening. And that was my Shen. Until that moment, I hadn't met my Shen. So that really helped, because what that meant was this kept building up, this kind of awareness. And I started having much more being able to faster process all the patterns. So I also did Tongwan for a year on trust, only on trust, because I could see that I didn't have any trust. During the year, I took a little peek at the other Shen qualities, but I noticed, I thought, no, trust is still not really resolved. Go back to trust. So I did it for over a year, and I could feel things shifting. And for me, trust was such a big issue, because my childhood had been quite difficult in some respects. And some things that happened to me that had really hurt me, really traumatized me. And even now, here I am, much older, I still couldn't get over them, even though I had worked so hard on myself all my life, from my 20s onwards. I still was haunted by what had happened to me. So when I did Tongwan one day, I suddenly felt into the person who had most harmed me. I felt into their heart from my own heart. And that was very different for me because I had only ever used my mind, used my consciousness to think about them. And feeling their heart was a whole different place. Their heart, and then I could feel that they had a lot of pain and that they were very traumatized as well. And then some special information came to me, and I could see their parents, and I could see their parents' pain. And then I could see all the generations going back and back. And I could see all the pain. This was amazing. I could see immediately why this person had done what they'd done, why they were doing this over and over again, because they were trying to stop the pain. They were trying to protect themselves. So this was incredible. And at that moment, I forgave them. It was just a kind of spontaneously happened in my heart. I felt immense compassion for them. This really helped me because when I met other people in my life, I felt now I could feel into their hearts and I could feel their pain. And instead of being distracted by the top surface of the world, this kind of surface that we think is the real world, I realized this wasn't. And underneath was a lot of things going on. And underneath that was their pure heart. And I could feel their pure heart. And so I could see that no one was trying to hurt anyone. They were just trying to protect themselves and help themselves survive. So this really, really helped. And then one day I also had a big revelation where I had this pattern that caused me a lot of pain, which was every morning I would wake up and I would feel this kind of despair and hopelessness. I would feel like I had no purpose. And I had decided I would do Ling 1 on this every day and work on it every moment. And so I worked on it for 3 weeks, but still I couldn't get through it. And so one day I was just like, I don't know what to do. I'll just leave it in the hands of the universe, and I will watch the universe for any messages it has. And so I went for a walk on the beach, and on that walk, I saw this beautiful little bird. Was pecking on the sand, little insects. And in that moment, all this information kind of just felt like it was downloading into me. And that information said to me that the bird's purpose was just to be the most itself it could be. And that was my purpose as well. So this was wonderful. And I learned at that moment that two leaves might look the same, but they are entirely different, and they're each their own miracle. So learning this transformed this pattern, and it immediately disappeared, and it never has come back. So things started getting better and better. I became happier and happier. And then one day I went for a swim, and I can't really swim very well. I can only dog paddle. And so I went and lay on my back in the water. It was a beautiful day. I looked up at the sky, and I could see the clouds passing by. And I suddenly felt this extreme love, like nothing I'd felt before. And I completely just disappeared. I no longer was there. But the love was immense. I don't know how long I was in that state, but when I came back, I had floated way out into the sea on my back, and I was very, very far from the shore. I didn't mind. Normally I would be really very scared because I can't swim very well, and I would have thought, oh, I might die. I might not make it back. But I didn't mind at all. I thought, if I die, that will be wonderful. If I don't die, that will be wonderful. And I slowly swam back, dog paddling, and I made it back. Then I went on a workshop, a 2-day workshop with Yuan Sir. And at the end of that workshop, I went and I had a bath on the Sunday night. And when I was in the bath, I was looking up at the shower head. And suddenly I was the shower head. And I noticed this thing moving across, and it was my hand, but I wasn't moving my hand. The universe was moving my hand. I didn't really know who I was and what was moving what. So this was very unusual. And then in the morning, everything was incredible. I went to buy fruit and vegetables at Fruit World, and it was the most incredible thing. Everyone in the shop was beautiful. All the vegetables, all the fruit was incredible. All of this information was kind of downloading into myself very fast about so many things. And I remember looking at this capsicum, a beautiful red capsicum, for what seemed like hours. And I was just astounded. I opened this bag to put some fruit into it. And when I opened this bag, I saw the universe inside the bag. It was amazing. And everything about everybody was kind of coming into me, all this information. And I remember this person, one person in particular, this older man, and I could feel that he was terrified of death and that he had built his whole life around trying to stop death happening to him. And it was like he had built a cage in his own mind. And he had really restricted his whole life and he was about to die. So I felt immense compassion. So this kept kind of getting more and more things happened. And I really couldn't operate. I didn't know how really, it was very hard for me to even speak. And I found it difficult to cope with all the information and be able to do anything at the same time. It was very overwhelming, but not in a bad way. It was amazing. And so, I was now working by this time again, and I had to end up stopping work for a while because I couldn't go to business meetings or anything like that. I just couldn't really cope. So then the next day after that, something very unusual happened, and that was that I felt all of the pain, all of the emotional pain that I had ever felt. And it was cycling through my body extremely fast. And it did this for about a day. And all I could do was lie on the sofa and let it just kind of process itself through me. And then the next day, I had all my patterns cycling through me extremely fast, like 1,000 a second. This went on all day. And on the third day, for 3 days, I had all the physical pain that I ever had cycling through my body, but it was so intense and it was so ramped up that it was the worst pain I've ever felt. So this was a little bit disturbing. On the second day of the pain in my body, I thought, okay, what do I do? Maybe my illness is coming back. And I went and looked at the workshop notes and I read the bit on chi reactions. I thought, oh, this must just be a chi reaction. So I just kept going with it. And then eventually it stopped. And then it was entirely different world. I didn't sleep much because I just felt this extreme love all the time. I didn't need to sleep. It was amazing. When I walked along the street and I went to the library or anything like that, it was like everyone was coming toward me in love. They would talk to me, complete strangers. They would hug me. They would come up and touch my arm and say, "How are you, dear?" And I didn't know why this was happening. it was like the world had totally changed. To have these complete strangers doing these things, it wasn't the world I was used to. And I was so in love with the world, and it felt like the world was so in love with me. Also, with my own family, things changed so much. So I used to find things that they did annoying. And what I noticed was I wasn't having the patterns that I used to have with them coming up anymore. And instead of acting annoying, they kind of just stopped acting annoying, and they became very loving and wonderful. And first of all, I thought, oh, this must just be because I'm not getting triggered. And so I'm not noticing what they're doing. But then I really looked at it, and I could see that they actually weren't doing the things that I felt like they did before. So it seemed like the world was changing around me. And then I noticed this other thing, which was with my own husband, that if I was in a pattern, he would be very resistant and he would go into a pattern. So if I asked him to put out, say, the garbage, and I was in a pattern, he was very resistant. And if I would say exactly the same words, but not be inside the pattern, not be in the pattern, negative pattern, I'd say exactly the same words, he would respond completely different. No, he would respond positively. I was just like, wow, how this is incredible. So what I learned from all of that was not to look outside myself anymore for the cause of my own suffering. I only ever looked now inside. The fingers all pointed back towards me. I knew that I was the cause of my own pain. So that was amazing. The other thing I really felt was like I had no purpose. I kind of was stripped away of myself. It was a bit disconcerting in some ways because I didn't have a self anymore. So even the things I really liked, like for instance, and I still like this thing, I liked kayaking. And it was a really big drive for me to go kayaking as much as I could. All of these things just disappeared. I was no longer me. And I became more like the universe's tool. And I was carrying out the purpose of the universe. So my life became much more simple. And everything was incredible. I also learned a lot about death through lots of different experiences. And one of them was one day I went to have a massage, because this is a strange story in a way. My husband had given me a massage voucher for my birthday, and I went and had this massage. And I was lying on the massage table, and suddenly I had died, and I was above myself, looking down on myself, my dead body. And the person that was touching me was now washing my corpse to make it ready for burial. And I felt this immense gongjing for my own body, for letting me have the life I had had inside it, and also to that person who now was washing my corpse. And it was an incredible learning. I had no fear of dying. I could feel that life and afterlife was just as wonderful as each other. It was all very beautiful. I was so lucky to be able to experience living in the world for that moment. So it's all very amazing. I didn't expect all of this to happen. I didn't expect at all that Rensure was about growth and wisdom when I started. I just wanted to get rid of my own pain. Initially, my physical pain, and then later, my emotional pain. So this was like this wonderful, unexpected gift. When I was doing the whole process, it was like I was doing a scientific experiment on myself. And it was actually really fun. I mean, there's a lot of, there was a lot of upset, and it was really hard work. But once I gave up kind of thinking like to stop thinking of taking myself seriously, like listening to my patterns, listening to my false self, I stopped doing that. Everything was just like doing this big experiment on myself. And so it was really interesting. So now it's hard for me now to distinguish sometimes, a lot of the time, who I'm working on. Am I working on myself, or am I working on the others? I don't know. I'm working on everything at once. And I'm so grateful that I get to teach Rensure in this amazing system because it is so complete. It deals with every aspect of us. And we just need to trust that it is a whole and it can do what it's meant to do. If we just trust and then just let everything else go and just do the process, take the steps, be committed and determined. That's all we need to do, is to be determined. You don't need to worry about anything else. Just trust that it will get you there. So, I was a person that had ravaged my own body with my own patterns. And I had taken things almost to the end of the road for this life. I felt like for most of my life that the universe had abandoned me. But what I now know is that I had abandoned the universe. So I feel like I am back. I feel like I went on this big diversion and now I'm back. And I'm really grateful to be here with you and for us all to be in this life together and our hearts to be together. So thanks so much for listening to me. I hope you found it helpful. So we will now go to questions. So if you do want to ask a question, the link will be in the chat box. So feel free to do that. I'll just get the questions out so I can read them. Just bear with me for a moment. So question 1. Thank you so much, Fiona. Can you please share what your life cultivation looks like now? I loved hearing Yansu talk yesterday about how this work is never ending. It doesn't matter where you are on the journey. What does this process look like for you moment to moment? Well, yes, it's true. It's never ending. And I'm still working very hard on myself every single moment. So I am doing Dre Cha on myself all the time. And this is one of the most incredible tools. And what I have noticed is that in that process, time kind of feels like it slows down, so I can meet each moment before it happens, and I can feel what's happening each moment and be in a good state. And it's like then when the moment happens, every single moment, I am in my heart. So this is a big practice for me. Because when I do this, I can see any patterns arising and then they disappear. Now, there are occasions where they don't disappear. But by that, what I mean by that isn't like before. They are there, but they're not upsetting me. So I don't get pulled into them. But I do know I still have it. I can kind of feel it inside my body. And I can feel it. I can feel it inside totality and what it does to totality for me to have that kind of, it's like a blip. It's like a blip happens. So, you know, we kind of think that, oh, okay, I'm in a pattern and it hasn't, you know, but I'm not doing anything in the outside world. It's not having an impact. I'm not crabby. I'm not annoyed. I look really happy. I'm all good. But even so, if you have a pattern, it is still impacting everything. Even though you think you're not showing it, even if you're hiding it, still there is really affecting totality. So if I have that happen, I will go and work on the pattern in terms of I will, if I need to, do Lingwan. And when I do Lingwan, I can really make a big difference now. It's can be like night and day before doing the Lingwan and then after doing the Lingwan. It's for me, Lingwan is still an incredible tool. And I also do practice Qigong every day, moving Qigong. And I practice the first 4 methods. And I kind of rotate them around. That's just me, what I'm doing at the moment. I mean, I change things on what I feel I need. And I also do the whole of level, the whole of method 5 and 6. These parts of these, they kind of happen naturally for me, like the microcosmic circuit. It sort of just spontaneously goes around. But I find practicing these methods actually really helps me grow in wisdom. So I practice that method, those methods, and it gets me to experience totality even more. And I have more realizations doing it. So at the beginning, when I was practicing Zhongwan, even though when I went to level 3 teacher's training, I did do the microcosmic circuit, but Afterwards, when I came back, I realized it was on a very surface level. I had to work very hard. I had a lot of accidents as a child and had 2 serious back injuries, one where I was paralyzed for quite a long time. And my base of my back, that for me to push the energy past that point in that practice, well, for it to move past that point, took a long time. So I do recommend that practice, because even though it can feel frustrating, what it did for me, in the end, it had very big benefits. And it's not just the benefit of having, well, your health increases immensely, but also the opening to totality, the opening to the universe is built through that practice as well. So I recommend that. I don't do Tongwan now, but that is because I feel like I'm in my heart all the time. But if I didn't feel like I was in my heart, I would definitely do Tongwan as well. So I hope that helps. Okay, if you have any more questions about that, just let me know. Question 2. Hi, Fiona. Thanks for your sharing. Incredible. I'm wondering how life is for your husband now. How has your relationship changed? Many thanks, and Gongjing. He's actually just downstairs. I could get him to come up and tell you, but I won't. Okay, so before I started Qigong, our relationship was fraught with arguments. We argue all the time. And our patterns were just colliding. We both wanted to be right. I look back on it now. I'm not proud of what I was. But, it's what everyone is. Everyone is just trying to cope and do the best they can. And so that's what we were doing too. So now things are incredibly much more harmonious. And my husband does do a little bit of moving Qigong. And when he's, he doesn't actually get into patterns hardly ever now. So what I found was, and I asked Yansei about this because I was astounded. I said, what's happened to Phil? What's happened to him? He doesn't have any patterns. He goes, what do you mean no patterns? I said, oh, well, he has them underneath. I can feel them, but they're not manifesting. Why? He doesn't do much Qigong. And he said, well, that's because of what's happened with you. And so, for both of us, our relationship is so much more wonderful. We have a great time together. and we respect each other, and we give each other the space now in terms of relating. We can be and allow the other person to be. So it's really, really nice. So he himself thinks things are incredible, and he finds himself, his life is much better now too. So it's great. Question 3. Have you heard of glaucoma and dry eye being healed? I haven't had any personal experience with that. However, I have had experience of many things being healed through working on myself, but also helping other people. So I think anything is possible. And what I recommend is obviously practicing moving Qigong and also working on your own patterns and working on your own heart. So doing Tongwan and Lingwan. A lot of illnesses are contributed to. Now, I'm not saying that everything is like this, but there's a lot more patterns going on in illnesses than you think. And that's not to make ourselves like it's our fault that we're like we are, because believe me, I've been there too, thinking, oh, it's my fault. But it's just to know that we have the power to change things. So I would definitely recommend going for it and seeing what happens. If you have any questions more about that, let me know. Question 4. I would like to have more clarity about identifying your patterns. Can you give an example of a list of patterns you would identify at one time? Instead of just mentioning patterns, I have never found 100 and learned the 30. So what did it look like for you? Thank you. Okay. So what I started finding when I looked at my patterns and I used the 30 patterns was that I had a lot of patterns that seemed to be made out of the 30. So what I mean by that is I would find a pattern, for example, like I'm so bad, or I am disgusting. These will be thoughts that will be going around in my mind. And when I started looking at, say, I'm so bad, I could see that the 30 fundamental patterns were part of I'm so bad. So inside I'm so bad, there could be 25 other patterns playing out. So for me, now this is just how I did it, because it's just kind of how it evolved for me. I would do Ling 1 on I'm so bad, and then that would really help me. So I would also do Ling 1 on feelings as well. So when I say feelings, I mean patterns of the heart, emotions that would keep happening over and over. So what I would do would be I would look at those emotions and I would identify what thoughts came with those emotions. And then I would identify, or I would use those thoughts to find the kind of base thought. And then I would do Ling 1 on that. Now, so that's why I mean I had hundreds, thousands of patterns, because I had hundreds and thousands of thoughts and emotions. So while I did Ling 1 on the 30 patterns, I also did them on these things as well. It was a free for all. So I just took each one, each thought, and I worked on that. I hope that helps. You can ask another question if you need to, if it's not that clear. The next question, question 5. Hi, Fiona. Thank you for all your sharing. How long was your journey recovering from fibromyalgia? And did you use any other modalities at the same time? So I started practicing Qigong in 2015. And the kind of big shifts happened for me in 2019. But within a year to 2 years, a year, I was physically almost better. I would, if I had lots of patterns, I could feel my fibromyalgia start again. And how it originally occurred, my fibromyalgia, was this arm started going kind of, it would ache in the shoulder, and then it would move down my arm, and it would start to kind of paralyze my arm, and then it would move through the rest of my body. So by about maybe a year and a half, I found that when I got stressed, when a pattern started occurring, I would get the start of the fibromyalgia again occurring in my shoulder. So I knew that as a warning sign, and then I would really try and identify what was causing that stress inside my body. And you know, that worked. But yeah, so I had a lot of freedom after about a year, and much more freedom after about 2 years. And now I am completely fine. I do have weaknesses, I know, sort of things that are leftovers from having it. So I would, I just making sure I look after myself, but I'm completely good. And I didn't use any other modalities. I did at the beginning, before I started Qigong, but I didn't find any of those helped. That's not to say they wouldn't help for other people, but for me, they didn't have the impact on me. Okay. The next question. Hi, question 6. Hi, Fiona. I struggle with trust and also acceptance. I also have fibromyalgia and CFS and find it hard to accept the pain and fatigue. Can you help me feel acceptance for these symptoms? Thank you. I'm so sorry that you're going through this, and I really feel your pain. What for me was really important was to acknowledge that I had suffered. And that for me, that suffering was real. That all I had been through was real, and I had the right to feel bad about it. That I had the right to live in this world and have these feelings. We sometimes try and push these feelings away, saying like I shouldn't have them. Now, when I say this, I don't mean like an indulging of the feelings. I mean a kind of real heartfelt connection with yourself, saying, I've been hurt, I'm in pain. You can have a conversation with your own heart, between your shin and your heart, and you can listen to your own heart and see how it feels, and acknowledge those negative patterns, those negative emotions on your heart, and just from the shin really acknowledge it. Acknowledge that you were hurt. This can help you feel acceptance for the symptoms as well. That it's okay to be where you're at. is okay, that you have this pain, and that you need to just look after yourself. You do need to do what you need to do to help yourself. It's very tiring having the pain day after day. But let yourself look after yourself. I hope this helps. Question 7. Are you still working in the profession you were working in before this change in your life? Or did this also change? I'm working a tiny little bit in the profession I was working in before. I've had many different jobs in my life, but my last kind of job was working in the environmental consulting field. I, at a certain point in my life, was involved with helping the environment in different projects, and that turned into consulting jobs. And so that's what I was doing when I had to be, well, that's what I stopped doing. And then that's what I started doing again once I felt a bit better. And it's been very interesting doing that profession from this new place. For instance, I went to this meeting at one point where it was a very volatile public meeting with a environmental government agency, and the agency had brought in bodyguards to protect them at this meeting. That's how extreme this meeting was. And at this meeting, I was just an observer. I wasn't actually involved in this, in consulting for this at this time. And for me, that meeting was amazing. I could feel everyone's hearts and the pure heart of everyone, even though people were standing up and screaming and threatening physically the other side. I just felt the whole time this amazing peace inside of me. And I asked some questions during the meeting. And when I asked them, they were environmental questions, but I asked them from my heart. And it was like a whole new world. A whole, these were two parties that were trying to do the best for the environment, but they were at loggerheads with each other. And then after the meeting, the agency, one of the representatives, came up to me and talked to me and said, "What's happening? You know." you're incredible. And then they told me all this information about what they were up to. And then at the end of it, they asked me, will you be a mediator for us and the other party? Because as you can clearly see, we need help. And so, of course, I said yes. But, you know, my work changed. My work went, how I did it changed. But now I don't really have time to do that profession anymore. So although I used to love it, and I still love it, that isn't my purpose anymore. I teach Rensure full time. And although I kind of give some advice in that profession, the old profession, I don't work in it, hardly any. Okay. Next question. Question 8. Hi, Fiona. How do we explain or look at patterns without being hard on oneself in regards to traumatic experiences? So the traumatic experiences in my life created a lot of patterns. And a lot of those patterns were about putting myself down and thinking I was wrong. So that was my go-to place. So what can happen, and what did happen for me for a while, was when I was trying to work on the patterns, instead of working on the patterns, I was actually trying to push the patterns away by using other patterns to do this. So I would have a bad feeling, a bad thought, and then I would say to myself, oh, you shouldn't have that, which really was me saying, you're bad, you shouldn't have these thoughts, get it together. Because the other thing for me was I had been learnt very young that I needed to achieve. And I kind of went into being a machine that achieved to cover up that underneath I felt deficient, to try and get the approval and love of others. So I turned into a big smoke screen. And so how I got through it was whenever I had bad thoughts, I would use other bad thoughts to try and beat myself into submission. So I would continue performing. You see, now you can see how I got where I got in terms of being so ill. So what I had to come to terms with was that way didn't work. That didn't help me. by beating myself into the submission. I couldn't do that anymore. So I had to just acknowledge that I was a normal human being. In fact, that everyone has patterns. And that sometimes even trying to stop the pattern is a pattern. If we do it from the place where we're trying to achieve other patterns, like be perfect, that doesn't work. So to do this, I just acknowledged every single pattern as it came up, and just became quite factual about it. I have patterns. So what? It's just the facts. I don't need to make any meaning to having those patterns, because it can be like a cascading effect. First, I have a pattern, a negative thought, and then I say to myself, oh, I shouldn't have that negative thought. And then I have another pattern that says, oh, I shouldn't have that thought. And then each time I'm saying different things to myself. So what you can do is kind of cut it off at the head. So if you have the initial pattern, say to yourself, I'm not going to indulge in beating myself up about this pattern. I'm just not going to go there because it doesn't serve me. And then just be able to deal with the original pattern happening. Now, of course, when you attempt this, you will probably have the next pattern coming on top of the other pattern. And if that happens, so that's fine, right? That's fine. Just try to be in your heart and give yourself love and compassion. And I hope that helps. Just trying to work out where I'm up to. Hi, Fiona. How did you approach Jan Sir about your big shift? And how did he verify your shift? Thank you. So I didn't know I had the big shift. I don't really know much about it. So when I was doing my level 4 test to try and pass that test for teachers training, you have to write a whole lot of answers to questions about how has that, the practice helps your life. How does it help your growth? And so I wrote down some of the things that had happened to me. And then Melissa wrote back and said, we want to talk to you. And I was like, why? I don't know why. So when we had this talk, and then we had so that was in 2019, I think, around then. And then after that, Jan Sir said, well, I just need to know, it sort of was unclear he wanted to know, make sure I was where he thought I might be, or that I was, getting there. So he just said, keep going. So I just keep going and doing all the things I've been doing before, all the practices I did before, and keep going. And then things keep growing. I keep having more realizations, more things changed. So, then after a while, he decided that he would introduce me to the community. I don't know exactly what he did to verify the shift, in terms of, he can see what he needs to see, and he can tell. So he just talked to me. We just had some conversations, and he asked me questions, a lot of questions. That's how he went through the process, and those answers to the questions told him what he needed to know. Okay. Question 10. Do you feel it was just random chance you met that Renshu teacher? Or are there other forces at play we may not understand? I don't understand everything. But for me, I felt like it wasn't random chance, particularly when I went to level 3 training. Because when I went to level 3, some things that Jan Sir said, particularly about totality, really resonated with me. I felt at that moment he was speaking things I had experienced when I was younger, and that I had lost the path, and this was me coming back to the path. When I was younger, I'd had some experiences of, I didn't know what they were. I didn't have a teacher. I had no guidance. And I had some experiences, and when he was talking about totality, it was like he was talking about my experiences. And so I asked Melissa at the training, I told her about my experiences, and she went and saw Yansei and asked him. And she came back to me and said, oh, they were experiences of totality, but they're kind of like beginners' experiences of totality, and there's much, much more. It was for me this relief, because I had kind of felt a bit like when these things had happened that, was I going a bit crazy? And what kind of happened was those experiences had built up, and other things started happening, and I had no guidance, and I didn't really know how to control it. And I can see now that at the time I had kind of got a little bit into the real and the unreal, and it scared me, and I closed it off. I was quite frightened, so I just shut it down. So for me, it was like coming back to my purpose. It was coming back to what had been opening up for me back then, that then I had stopped. So I felt like it was like coming home, and it was meant to be. So I'm lucky. I'm lucky I got back onto the path I was meant to be on. Question 11. I am touched by your path to self-realization. I guess we put too many expectations, and we command to the universe rather than the other way back. Where lies the wisdom? Living on gratitude bring the answers. It seems that as we open our heart, trusting heals and dissolved painful patterns. What goes first according to you? Gratitude or trust? Thanks for your courage and inspiration. For me, what went first was trust. I needed trust. I could kind of I felt gratitude before I started Rensure, but and I felt love as well, but now I see they were at a very low level, that there was a lot more. And the only way for me to get there was to feel complete trust. When I felt that complete trust, like when I was in the sea and I was floating out, had floated out, and when I came back to my body, and I still felt the incredible feeling, what I felt was, what I described it as, was love. But I actually felt all the Shin qualities at once. And I felt that love was the same as every Shin quality. So they all seem to be the same to me now. And they're all utterly amazing. But for me, I needed to work on trust, because I just didn't have any. I was always preparing to be hurt, and I was preparing for things to go wrong, and I was preparing to be kind of damaged. So I wasn't prepared to put myself out in the world in a vulnerable way because I felt get hurt. I was only prepared to put myself out in the world in a facade. So to drop the facade, I needed to feel trust, and I needed to surrender to that trust. I'll just check what else you asked. Yes, what you say about we command to the universe. That is wise, what you're saying. I was waiting for the day where the universe was going to behave in the way I wanted it to, and then I would trust. And until that moment happened, I wasn't going to do anything that would endanger me. And I had built myself a cage, much like that man I saw in the fruit shop had, that I wasn't letting myself out of. There was no way I was going to get hurt. So it was all dependent on what they did. And if they behaved right, then I might put my toe out of the cage. But no one can hurt the true you. No one can hurt you. Not when you're in your heart. No matter what they do. Question 12. With your experiences where you didn't know what was going on and things were intense and different than normal, you did not at all feel fear at all the changes. How did you work through that? No, I didn't feel fear. I felt wonder. I was in my heart. So there was no fear. I didn't understand rationally what was happening, but no, I didn't have fear. I felt like I was being cradled by the universe. I did have time after my, these intense experiences where it felt like I didn't know who I was. But that was actually lovely and perturbing at the same time. Like I would kind of try to find, I had these things that I had wanted to do, like, goals. And I tried to find them inside. Where are the goals? Do I want those goals that I had before? And no, I didn't. I didn't have any kind of attachment to any goal. So for a while, I felt a bit like a non-person. But it didn't scare me. It was wonderful. It's just I was kind of empty of attachment, which was wonderful. And then the universe sort of started to because arose that all of these things I needed to do in terms of not me, but I just did what arose. So no, it wasn't scary. Question 13. What really helped you in cultivating unconditional trust? How did you keep making progress in it? Thank you. Well, doing Tongwan every day really helped me without fail. And sometimes I would do it twice a day or even more if I didn't feel like I had that trust. And also I practice being in my heart. So I practiced feeling my own heart and what my own heart felt like. And I practiced feeling inside other people's hearts. Now, at the beginning, this was, it wasn't that real in terms of I had to kind of fake it till I made it. But I did my best. And I did little practices like I would decide that every time I walked up the stairs, the sort of stairs in my house, I would walk up them many times a day, up and down them. Each time I would walk up those stairs, I would have this sticky note that I put on the stairwell, which would say trust. And so when I walked up the stairs or down the stairs, I would try to feel my heart trust. So it was like every step I took, as my foot hit the ground, it was emanating trust from my heart. Every movement I made through space was emanating trust. So I did practices like that. And I also did things like choosing activities, like say washing the dishes. Every time I wash the dishes, I would practice being in trust in every single moment of that. So I would try and feel the trust in my heart, and I would, wash a plate in that trust place. And to do that, I had to do things very slowly, because otherwise other thoughts would take over and I would get swept away on those other thoughts. But I needed to just slow down everything and then feel every single moment and may be in that trust every single moment. The same for going for a walk. I went for a walk every day and practiced Dre Cha, practice being in trust on the walk. This little tips. Hopefully that helps. So it's been wonderful to be here with you today. And I love you all very much. We'll now go to a 10-minute break. And I hope you really enjoy the rest of the retreat and that all your wishes come true. Goodbye.
各位同学，大家好。
Greetings, everyone.
总算又见了大家了。
So lovely to see you again.
现在器材又不一样了，
The Chi field is different again.
更多了一些新的信息，看来有些同学心被触动了。
There's more information of the heart. It looks like many of your heart was touched.
到现在为止，有3个在觉悟智慧上有突破、有收获的老师，分别跟大家做了一些由他们自己有关于觉悟智慧和相关问题的实践的一些体验、经验和理解。
So far, we have had 3 teachers who have made some breakthroughs in their development of realization and wisdom, sharing their experiences and their understanding with you.
我们有理由相信，这给大家一定会带来不一样的体验，还有特殊的启示。
Their teachings must have brought some new insights for you, and must 不同的体验呢，
特殊的体验
and also
和
some
启发。
special experiences.
还有内在的、内心的触动和感受到的鼓舞。
And when your heart is touched, listening to them, being with them, it must have felt really inspirational.
也很有可能会给我们一股真正向前、奔向人生光明目标的动力。
Perhaps what they did could help you find more momentum or driving force to keep moving forward towards a brighter future.
他们的分享和参与非常珍贵。
Their participation in this retreat and their sharing are very precious.
谢谢他们3个。
So thank you all, the 3 teachers.
也谢谢同学们真正能够用心的参与。
And thank you everyone for participating in their sessions with your heart.
那么，他们的分享结束了，我们要说的是， 无论我们觉悟智走在觉悟智慧路上，已经走在哪一个程度，在任何时候、任何情况下，都必须小心谨慎，认定你的目标和方向，真正的目标和方向。
And at this time, with all three teachers having done their sharing, Yuanzi would like to once again emphasize that no matter where we are on the path of realization and wisdom, no matter how far we have, moved forward, we have reached at any time, anywhere we're at, we have to be fully aware that we need to take every care we can to make sure we are holding on to the right path, moving in the right direction.
无论我们已经到了哪一个层面，它永远只是走在觉悟智慧的，这是一个新的起点，它永远没有终结。
And no matter where we're at, there is no end to this process. We shouldn't let off the effort we need to make, because on the path of realization and wisdom, there is no end, no finish line.
无论在什么情况下，要紧紧的守住自己的真心，守住我们的真心，让他们统一起来，绝不这个紧守和坚守，永远不放弃，
And
不松懈。
under no circumstances that we should leave our true heart and true nature. We should always stay with them, holding on to them, not letting them go, not leaving them.
只有如此，觉悟智慧才能永远在路上。
And this is the only way forward on the path of realization and wisdom.
这也是不光我这里面提的，不光是分享的这三个，所有的人，包括将来，我相信有更多的人进入了这个阶段，都是如此。
And this is the principle for everyone, and for anyone who will reach this level of realization and wisdom, of seeing the true self.
只有大踏步的、持续的走在觉悟智慧的路上，正确的路上，我们才能真正成为一个自度度人的一个真正意义上的践行者。
And it's only when we are able to move forward on this path of realization, on the path of realization and wisdom, that can we call ourselves the true practitioner of 自度度人, uplifting ourselves and helping others.
当然，这不仅仅是他们，每一个人学的参与者、学习者、实践者， 其实我希望的每个人，而且越来越多的人都在走在这个道路上。觉悟智慧，自度度人。
Now you're all walking on this path of using Renxue to attain, to develop realization and wisdom. This is the path for 自度度人. And Yuanzi believes that there will be more and more people coming to this path, moving forward on this path.
这样，我们的人生才会真正开始发生变化。
This is the path for real change of life.
这是一个不断的走向越来越美好、越来越光明的人生的一条路。
It's a path that, as we go on it, as the process unfolds, life gets better and brighter.
这是要让自己的人生和未来越来越充满希望的路。
It is a path that gives us hope for the future.
这条路，只有更多的人能够走在这条路上，这个人类的社会才会真正发生改变，人类才会变得越来越有希望。
If more and more people are moving on this path, then we will have more hope for the future of society, of humanity.
也就是这条路，觉悟智慧，自度度人，是每一个人整个人类社会最光明的路，最根本的路，最重要的一条路。
The path of realization and wisdom of 自度度人 is the fundamental path, the most important path for humanity. It's a path everyone needs to find and work on.
今天是第7天了，我们看来需要更加快速度，开始把剩下来的一些问题，我们也需要去进行探讨了，继续探讨。
This is the 7th day of this retreat. We need to speed up a little bit with our questions.
这些有前面的基础，在我们前面的基础上，再进行的问题，在很多的问题，我相信大家已经不同程度已经有所了解，也会比较清楚了。所以我们对于这个接下来的问题，我们共同的每个问题，我们共同的去找到答案，尝试去寻找答案。
And we have been learning together for 6 days so far, and the 7th day it is today. And so Yuanzi would like you to use what you have learned to find the answers that are being asked here. So it's a collective effort, of answering the questions.
我在接下来的答案里面，不再全面展开了，这是象征性的，做一些提示，然后 提供大家一些思考。
So from here on, Yuanzi would not expand from the question. Instead, he will just provide a few, lines of thinking so that you can continue to explore with us, with what you have learned so far.
好，接下来
Okay, let's move on to question number 14. My question is about freedom. There are situations in life in which others decide things that can have a big impact on one's life. In my situation, the current rules dictate that I'm not able to go see my family unless I'm vaccinated. After much consideration, I made the choice not to vaccinate, as I feel that is the healthier choice for me. But because of current government rules, it means I cannot visit my family, including my elderly father, and that makes me feel that part of my freedom is taken away. Also, if I was a citizen, I would not have to vaccinate, but because I'm a permanent resident, when I go overseas, I cannot come back home without being vaccinated. I have done Lingyuan on this and see underlying patterns. Transforming these patterns and experiencing more freedom from the replacement patterns do not change that I cannot go overseas to see my father. That freedom is still taken away. Can you speak about freedom when choices are taken away? How to look at this with wisdom? And just to clarify, my question is not about whether to take the vaccine. My question is about freedom when others do take part of your freedom away. Thank you.
什么是自由？
What is freedom?
这在我们已经在不同的角度也多次做过探讨。自由如果简单分，可以把它分成外在的自由和内在的自由。
We have talked about freedom from different angles. For example, we roughly classify freedom in two categories: external freedom and internal freedom.
外在的自由，严格讲，外在怎么自由都得不到，都不是一个真正的自由。
Strictly speaking, no matter how much external freedom we have, it's not true freedom.
而只有你获得了真正内在的精神的自由，回到真心和真性，越来越精纯，越来越智慧，才开始获得你属于你真正意义上的生命上的自由。
It is only when we are back to our true heart and true self, true nature, that we can say we start to enjoy true freedom. The more pure, purified we are in this place, the more true freedom we have.
在现实的社会当中，人们都非常忽略这个内在的自由，而特别注重外在的自由。
And in reality, most people put a lot of emphasis on external freedom and very little focus on internal freedom.
因为人没有内在的自由，也体验不到真正的自由，也做不到，所以人的本 人性是追求自由的，是需求，他的基本需求，所以他只能在外在上去实践、去追求。
But freedom is a need on human nature level, and so we naturally want to feel free. When we don't feel or experience much internal freedom, we naturally will go externally to look for it.
因为一旦模式形成以后，模式它是不想改变的，它是不想被约束的，它要全盘控制的，它也要追求外在的追求。
And especially when patterns are established, patterns don't want to change themselves. Patterns just want full control. So, 为什么你最后一句是什么？为什么模式要追求外在自由？
他不想被控制，不想被改变，他要控制一切，主导一切。
So they want to dominate and control everything. 那跟追求外在自由是什么关联啊？我怎么忽然断线？
他就会在外在方面来追求，
And
体现。
they like to seek externally. They look everything externally.
另外，我们还需要了解，所以你真正的自由，没有人，没有外在的力量能够剥夺你的真正的自由。
Another thing we need to see or understand is no one can take away your true freedom, your internal freedom.
哪怕你的外在已经全部失去了自由，但是没有人能真正剥夺一个人的内在的自由。
Even when all our external freedom has been taken away, no one can take away your internal, your true freedom, the freedom of your Jinshen, on Jinshen level.
但是有一个例外，有一个人可以剥夺你内在的自由。
Except one person. One person.
Who?
Who is that? 原子 said who?
自己。
Ourself.
哪个自己？
The self. Which self?
假的自己。
The false one.
模式。
Your patterns.
真的没有人能剥夺。
Really, no one can take true freedom away from you.
比如说我们在生活当中碰到很多的事情，需要面临我们选择。
In life, we often have to make choices.
事情，生活当中任何事情，其实它的本身就留有我们人足够的选择的空间，太多的选择。
And there is often a lot of room for us to make choice.
但是我们如果对这本来就那么多可以选择的东西，我们只给自己留下一个选择。
But often we only leave one choice for ourselves.
只给自己留下一个选择，就是没有给自己选择的自由。
And so that means we don't give ourselves the freedom to choose.
是不是这个道理？
Can you see that?
自己剥夺，放弃。
We deprive ourselves of the opportunities to make choice. We give that opportunity away or give it up.
在生活当中，如果放到我的话，在生活当中有相关的一些法规、一些规定，换成我如何去看，如何去对待？
And there are so many rules and regulations and laws in society. How does Yuanzi see those?
我会接受，会顺应。
He will accept them and observe them.
同时，我还有很多很多的选择。
But at the same time, he has many other choices.
这种选择最终的结果是对自己、对他人、对社会、对一切都是整体有利的一种选择，
And
就是我的选择。
his choices, whatever they are, will be beneficial to all, to himself, to others, and to society as a whole. So this kind of choices would be his choice.
对抗，不接受，就会对抗，就会对立，甚至就会产生矛盾，甚至冲突。
We can choose to fight and to refuse to accept, and this will definitely lead to conflict.
所以在这个社会，那么多的东西而无法接受，矛盾、对立、对抗、冲突，往往常常人深陷其中，觉得还不够强硬。
So you can see clashes, conflicts, fights everywhere in society, and people get trapped in those and still often feel that they are not strong enough to fight, to win.
这是自我剥夺自己自由选择的结果。
This is the result of exercise freedom to choose,
也是失去，
exercising freedom to choose.
也是没有真正得到自己内在自由的结果。
Also the result of not having internal freedom.
好，这个问题到这。
Let's look at question 15. I feel like the pattern of polarity is extreme in the world today. To me, it seems like a battle of materialistic extremism, devolution, versus the journey of spiritual enlightenment, evolution, aka the battle of good versus evil. On the one hand, we seem to have a small but powerful group of elites who, through plans of the Great Reset, World Economic Forum, Agenda 2030, etc., are full steam ahead, aiming for transhumanism, merging IT with humans, insertion of nanotechnology and biotech into the human body, microchipping, social credit scanning, etc., artificial intelligence, virtual reality, for example, the metaverse, where people are encouraged to live in a digital virtual reality, planned depopulation of the human race, medical discrimination, 5G takeover, developing life on Mars, socialist control, and much more. It feels like the sci-fi movies of the past 20 years are coming to life, and that we are now living in these movies. On the other hand, there's the evolutionary movement of spiritual, personal development, meditation, harmony, love, seeking the true self, true freedom, harmony, wisdom, following the Tao, etc. Please, can you comment on this state of affairs and how you understand it from an enlightened perspective? Thank you.
人们都知道，这个世界上存在着所谓的善、恶、对、错、美、丑、正、邪之分。
We all know in this world there are many polarized qualities: good, evil, right, wrong, beauty, ugliness, all kinds of this kind of polarities.
看起来，他们都是相互对立的两种存在。
They all seem to be two opposite qualities or existence.
而这一切的存在，只是我们人对它的看法、它的认知、人的对它的观念而已。
But they are that way mainly because of the way we see things. So they come from our way of looking at things.
但在客观的真实的世界里面，并不存在一个绝对对立的所在，它是一种对立，绝对的对立。这种事物是不存在的。
But in reality, in the true reality, absolute opposition doesn't exist. Two things that are on the two opposite extremes. This is not part of the true reality.
它存在于什么？相对的所谓的正邪对错，有没有这样的属性存在？是存在的，但是它的存在只是相对性的。
There are, qualities of opposite, in opposite or two different extremes, but they are only in relation to each other in a relative term, not absolute.
在这个世界当中，要了解这个问题，我们简单聊一下阴阳。从阴阳的结构上，大家可能那个结构图大家可能接触过。阴阳代表着是两面，但是它们合成一个整体，阴中有阳，阳中有阴，而且不断的在发生着相互的转化，也就是它的运动变化在不断的相互转化。
We can look at this from the perspective of yin and yang. You may have seen the symbol of yin and yang. That symbol means the two different qualities are always changing, and there is always yin within yang and yang within yin, and these two qualities are constantly changing and also transforming into one another. And the two of them form a totality together.
阴阳是与存在广泛的存在于宇宙当中，它化生了万事万物，演化变成万事万物，又存在于万事万物当中，一切事物当中，有普遍性的存在。
And yin and yang qualities will, through their interaction, transform into what we call 10,000 things. So everything, in the universe comes from there. And we can also say that yin and yang qualities are within everything.
也就是不管所谓的善和恶、正和邪，都是相对的，而且它们会相互发生的转化，不是正的不是绝对的正，邪不是绝对的邪，而且它们可以相互转化。
And so this means the two seemingly opposite qualities are constantly, changing and transforming into one another. So there is no such a thing as an absolute good or bad, or good or evil, or right or wrong.
所以把事情看成是两极的存在，其实是代表了一种两极思维的模式。
And we often look at things as polarized, as two opposite or fixed opposite things. That is mainly the work of the pattern of polarized thinking.
所以会在这个社会上广泛的能看到一种现象。
And this can be seen everywhere in society.
You bad people, me good people. 说对了没有？
不错。
Thank you. 竟然有好人和坏人之分。
Yeah. Good people, bad people.
世界上有一个真正绝对的坏人，有一个真正绝对的好人吗？
Is there anyone in the world that is absolutely good, only good, or absolutely bad, only bad?
不存在。
There is no such a person.
错误的认知。
So that's false or incorrect
会有绝对，
knowing or way of looking at it.
那会有绝对存在绝对邪恶的人吗？
Is there such a thing as a absolutely evil human being?
有存在绝对邪恶的国家吗？
Or a nation? Is there such a nation?
不存在。
No.
就是存在也是被妖魔化的结果。
But there are countries or nations that have been demonized that way.
模式的玩意儿作品。
That's the work of patterns.
至于说我们是物质，包括物质的文明，它的科学技术，我们一直说前面提到过，它是中性的，关键它最后能发生什么，朝哪个方向去发展，发生什么作用，那是人决定的，而不是物质和科技决定的。
And we also looked at how the development of science and technology is neutral. The material development or material advancement, these things are neutral. How they are used is determined by us people, humans.
那这个人类决定是神我决定还是假我来决定？这个不同的分别，但是造成的结果完全不一样。
So we can ask, who is making that kind of decision? Is it the false self or the true self? Because they can lead to totally different outcomes.
所以，对于科技，对于物质文明，不应该恐惧，不应该担心，需要认真看清楚，要对待的是人，要解决人的问题。
So we shouldn't develop fear of technology or science or any advanced development in that area. What we need to take seriously is people.
最后一句，可以谈谈这个前传和你如何从开悟的角度看它。我们一下没了解这个意思是什么。
And so the last sentence of the question is, can you comment on this state of affairs and how you understand it from an enlightened perspective? Yuanzi actually didn't get that when he first looked at the question.
反正我瞎猜，我就是把我和开悟这两个结合在一块儿了。
So Yuanzi's guess is to, 你是说这问问题的人，is that the questioner has associate Yuanzi with enlightenment. That's the association.
我的记忆当中，好像我从来没有说跟任何一个人分享过和讲过，讨论我自己有关于开悟的问题。
Yuanzi doesn't remember talking about himself from the perspective of enlightenment.
也从来没有跟任何一个人分享过有关这个方面的经历和体验。
And he's never shared any experiences or anything that happened in that area with anyone. No, his personal experiences.
你们的啥可能都没有。
Not even with me.
我知道，尽管他，包括我们同学很多人很想知道。
But he knows a lot of people would like to know more about that, including me.
在20多年前，曾经自己有一个特殊的经历发生。
And over 20 years ago, something very special happened.
当时一个非常的冲动，很想跟人去分享和探讨这个问题。
At that time, Yuanzi had a very strong urge to share that with others, to talk about it with others.
正因为一场有关这个问题的聚会， 是我决定不再探讨我自己的问题。
你说有分享，然后后来学到了，是不是？
没有，只是探讨。
有探讨，是不是？
这方面的问题。
有跟人家探讨，是不是？So he did. He talked about things related to that with some people, and from that he decided to not talk about his personal experience.
我发现最终的发现，一群精神和宗教的实践者，特别对开悟特别有追求，而且真正付出很多，真正在下功夫的人，好像我讨论这个问题不被接受，不被欢迎，而且似乎还。因为我不是我并没有宗教背景，似乎我不应该有这样的资格。
What happened was he talked about his experience with people who had, religious or spiritual practice background. And the response he received was that because Yuanzi didn't follow any of those things or practices, so he was not he was not eligible to talk about this kind of thing at all.
但是我能够了解这一切发生了什么。为什么会这样？
And he knew 这一切是指你体验的还是这件事情？
这件事情。
And so he understood what happened there.
所以我就决定不再讨论我个人。
And so at the time, he decided to not talk about his personal experience anymore.
开始确定，但是不会影响我做我需要我应该做的事情，一点都不重要。我该做什么，我去做什么就好了。
To him, that that didn't matter. That wasn't very important. He just the only thing that really mattered was continuing to do what he needed to do.
这个做的两条路，一个就是我自己必须要我的未来必须坚定的走在不断的觉悟作为这条道路上，然后我要做让更多的人让这个世界一起来走向这条路，我要铺就一条路。
And what he needed to do was two things. One was to continue to walk on the path of realization and wisdom very steadfastly, unwaveringly, and also to create a path for other people to walk on.
有没有谈论到我自己，其实一点都不重要，关键走对这两条道路才重要。
So it wasn't so important whether he talked about himself or not. To him, that wasn't that important. What was important was doing those two things.
所以我记得几年前我们有一些老师建议我，要写一些我个人的回忆录。我说不用写，不要关注我个人，越不关注我越好。但是我希望大家 把注意力放在人学，在人学世界上。
A few years ago, some people suggested that Yuanzi write an autobiography or memoir, things like that, to tell his personal story. But he kind of declined that idea because he felt the focus shouldn't be on him, it should be on 人学。
政治观众人学、实现人学，让越来越多的人都能走在这个觉悟智慧的大道上，这不就达到目的了吗？其他都不重要。
Because the purpose of creating 人学 is for more people to use it to develop and attain realization and wisdom. So that should be the focus of what we do.
我知道很多同学想知道、想问，好像也不太好意思问。
But he's aware that many people are curious, and probably some of you have wanted to ask him this question, but not sure if you should.
那我到底要不要跟大家分享呢？有一些特殊的经历、体验。
So should he share his experiences with everyone?
我有这个准备，也想。
And now he has he feels like to, so he's preparing to do that.
因为我的想法改变了。
So his thoughts around that have changed.
我也认为是到时候了。
Because he feels that it's about time.
什么时候呢？
So when is he going to do that?
I don't know.
Oh, he just said, I don't know.
或许很快，
Maybe very soon.
或许还得等一段，
Maybe there'll be a little wait,
但不会是20几年。
but it wouldn't be 20 years.
其实不分享，那个时候不分享是很多很多的好处。
Looking back, there were a lot of good reasons and also advantages for not sharing back then.
那个时候分享所看到的一切，所体验的一切，和现在再看到和体验的完全不一样。
Because what he experienced back then, and how everything was for him back then, due to those experiences, were very, very different from what he experiences now.
但是那个时候和过去相比，平常的我相比，教我相比，已经翻天覆地了。但是尽管翻天覆地了，和现在比又翻天覆地了，很多次翻天覆地了。
Even though those old experiences were already completely they were making his life completely different, but now his life is completely different from back then, even after experiencing experiencing those big shifts. And actually, it has happened many times, over these years. That kind of dramatic shifts.
我自己也肯定自己，我会肯定自己，没有停下来，更没有往回走。
So in this whole process, he has been giving himself affirmation, the whole time, and keeping himself moving forward without stopping, without pausing.
所以说，20年来到纽西兰，和很多同学，你会发现，我不同的时间，很多东西所讲的东西它不一样，有时候是完全不同，这就对了。现在我所有的表达，我的认知20年前一样的话，那我就变得很可惜了。
So some of you may have seen that Yuanzi has been, changing in the past 20 years. He's been in New Zealand for 20 years now, and his teachings have been evolving during those 20 years too. So what he's teaching now is actually very different from what he taught back then 20 years ago. And that's how it should be. If his teachings stay the same, that's not right. Okay, let's look at next question. 16. Dear Yuanzi, I feel plagued by bad luck. I take great care to do things in the right way and to protect my body from harmful things, but I repeatedly seem to be dealt an unintended result. I seem to always be in the wrong place at the wrong time and bump into harmful situations. I realize that this way of thinking is a pattern of the consciousness. However, others who observe my life agree that I seem to have bad luck. After an unfortunate setback, I always dust myself off and start over again with optimism until it happens again. Could you help me understand this cycle and suggest ways to break this cycle of bad luck? Thank you for sharing your wisdom and compassion.
这位能感受到这位同学常常会碰到一些麻烦的事情。
Yuanzi feels deeply for this person. This person has, seemed to have bumped into difficult situations frequently.
我让自己有深刻的体验，而且在别人看来好像也是如此。
And this is the experience of the questioner, and it's also confirmed by other people who observe this.
那是个问题，是个麻烦，我们就要面对和处理它。
When there is an issue or problem, then we need to face it and deal with it.
如果是一个相对比较新的同学，你就可以建议你开始从人学的学习，然后去实践，包括各种功法的实践。我相信 就开始发生一些改变了。
If you are relatively new to 人学, Yuanzi would advise that you start learning more about 人学, about, for example, the 员工 methods, and you start applying them, practicing them, and you should be able to see some improvement.
然后特别我们知道的意识，我们的心，我们的意识，其实这平常人都有的，我们可以积极的，因为它是契合生命的主宰。你怎么想，它会引导它怎么去变。所以呢，我们一开始尝试积极健康的、主动的去运用意识，坚持这样去做。通常来讲，很多事情，大部分来讲可能就很少存在了，或者不存在了。
And you can also work on your consciousness, especially your thoughts, because your consciousness, your 精神 is the master of your qi and your life. If we are able to have more, aware of our thoughts and to work on them, to change the unhealthy or negative thoughts into positive, healthy thoughts, then we should start to see change in life.
中国人有句老话叫做"越怕鬼又见鬼"。
There's a slang in Chinese language. The more you are afraid of ghosts, the more likely you will see them.
就你越怕它，你成天老想着它，老惦着它，你就和那个东西一直相结合了，你就吸引那个东西，把那个信息给强化了。
Because when we are afraid of something, the more fear we have, the more we are attached to it. And the more we reinforce that information, and that means the more we capacity there is to attract this kind of information as well.
它就会产生疑神疑鬼，然后产生幻觉也可能，真的看到也有可能。
And then we can start to get paranoid. In Chinese, paranoid is translated as suspecting there's a ghost somewhere all the time. Okay, so that's paranoid. And then if we get paranoid, we can start to have see things, like illusory visions, visuals. So can start to things that actually don't exist. 对于厄运，同样的道理，病，不好的事情，厄运，同样的道理。 It's the same with bad luck or illness.
所以，如果练功积极主动要意识还不行，那就你如果愿意的话，从五行开始，从行人开始。
If your practice of 元功 and using your consciousness, your thoughts positively are not helping much, then you should probably focus more on your heart, cultivating the 5 Xing qualities, maybe starting with trust.
信任的心建立起来，到了一定的程度，这些问题自动就没有了。
When your trust is, is firmly established, when your heart can feel that way, at some stage, at some level, this issue will not be there anymore, will automatically be resolved.
如果信任还不够，开发。
If trust is not enough for dissolving or making this problem go away, work on openness.
开发的前提是无条件的接受。当你无条件的接受开始建立的时候，什么样的事情都能接受，所谓的厄运也能接受，你还会担心什么？
If you can, and the foundation of one of the foundational components of openness is unconditional acceptance. If we are able to accept anything, including bad luck, 最后一句是什么？如果能够无条件接受，然后呢？
你还有什么事情不能接受呢？
What else can scare you? What else can be difficult to accept?
如果更多的心、爱、感恩、恭敬，那爱自然更大了。
If you can have other Xin qualities manifesting, for example, love, gratitude, and Gongjing, they will be even more powerful. They can even make more change.
真的没什么可怕的，没什么可值得恐惧的事情。
Really, truly, there is nothing that we need to be afraid of. There is nothing to fear.
因为在你的真我里面，它就没有恐惧，没有害怕，没有担忧，但一切事情都是好事情。
Because that's how true self feels. There is no such a thing as fear or worry. When we are in our true self, everything is a good thing.
只有我们的担忧，我们的害怕，不是我们真正的自己害怕，是我们的模式在害怕、担忧。
When we are worried or fearful, it's not the true us, true self that is fearing. We are not fearing. It's the false self. It's the patterns.
我们还要跟着模式走吗？
Do we want to continue to follow our patterns?
如果跟着模式走，会什么结果？
What could we expect if we continue to follow our patterns?
想想看，每个人都想想看。
You work it out.
Who are you?
Yuanzi just said, "Who are you?"
大家自己去理解。
嗯，
大家自己去在心里面好好的去体验。
Go back into your heart and ask yourself and feel that question in your heart.
啊，这个问题到这儿。
Okay, that's for that question. 继续吗？ Number 17 is pure awareness, the manifestation of the unconditional true self. Is the true self just pure awareness, or is awareness and observation a product of the true self?
这道题呢是一个概念、一个名词的解释的问题。
It feels more like a question about, the definition of the concepts mentioned here.
我一下子没看懂，后来马勒萨给我做了解释，就是这个自觉意识。他说提到了那个东西，好像在中文里面没有相同的词，就是比较接近一些，就是自觉意识。但自觉意识在中文里面是有不同的意思。
You may not believe it. In Chinese, we don't have a proper term to translate awareness. So I kind of have to, find a term, but it may not be completely, the same as awareness.
我们这样，这个词呢，自觉意识，我们把它稍微做一个另外的解释，就是我们把它称为一种精神里面的一种觉知、觉悟的清楚，叫觉知。
So Yuanzi would like to turn the word awareness into something, use something close to it in Chinese, and that's 觉悟的觉知啊，觉知。
觉知就是在觉悟状态之下的清楚。
觉知 means the clarity you have when you're in the state of realization.
这个自觉意识，我们把它变成觉知这个词，就比较好了解。
So he's using the term 觉知 for awareness, the English word awareness.
而不是一般的知道，我知道自己在干嘛，我知道发生的一切，我知道所有的反应，那是一般的。但是我们说的觉知不是一般的，它的背景是觉悟。
So this is not just awareness in an ordinary sense. It's not that I'm aware of what I'm doing, I'm aware of this or that, or what's around me. This is awareness coming from the state of realization.
那么这个是不是中我的体现呢？当然了，觉悟为背景，当然某种程度上就是中我的体现。
So definitely this awareness or 觉知 is a manifestation of the true self. Anything that, comes from realization, is part of the true self, is a manifestation of the true self.
那第二句就是中我是不是就是觉知的，就是纯粹的觉知意识？它们是相关的。
The second question is the true self just pure awareness?
不可分的。
They are inseparable. Okay.
第三个问的是，这是觉知和观察是真我的产物吗？可以说产物，也可以准确一点，应该是它的功能体现。
The third question is awareness and observation a product of the true self. We can say it's a product, but if we want to be more precise, we can say it's a manifestation of the true self.
还有2分钟。
We have 2 minutes left.
哇，今天效率很高。
Huh? You've been very efficient today.
还有 还有不少题。那么我们说，在这个过程当中，我们还会开放一个时间，让大家把新产生的问题给提出来。
We still have a few questions to go, but Yunzi also told us that during this retreat we will open to have more questions as well.
考虑到还剩下2天时间，我们有很多事情要做，还有一些问题要进行，所以我们能放进来的题，不过我们真正能够解答的题可能比较有限。
But we only have 2 days left, and we have, other things than Q&A to do. There's only a limited room, very limited space for more question.
但是我们既然已经有这个计划，也答应了，我们一定放。
But he has promised to open up for more questions, so it has to be done.
什么时候开始？结束以后就开始。
So it starts after the end of the session.
什么时候关？我们看的题，差不多的题大概应该不会超过5个。
And we will close or cut off when we have 5 questions.
如果超过了怎么办？
What happens if we get more than 5 before we cut off?
来不及的，反正以后还有机会。
超过了是说你收到了
收过了，超过了，
来不及回答的话，是不是？
我们以后还有机会。
If we couldn't finish all the questions this time, there will be another time.
找到时间。
Time is up.
非常享受能和大家有过的一个美好的、全新的、独特的一天。
It's been another very enjoyable time with you. Another wonderful, brand new and special day.
现在场里面的信息越来越好，越来越多，大家自己主动的去收藏。
There's a lot of really amazing, wonderful information in the Qi field. So let's draw it all back before ending this session. Now get into a good state yourself.
自己进入内心，心生相合。
Come into your heart and unify your heart with your Shen.
美好的内心呈现就在那里。
The wonderful qualities of your heart are all there. They are there.
感受里面的美好、智慧和光明。
Enjoy this beautiful light within yourself, the wisdom, the bright light. Gently open your eyes.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.